Welcome to this week's episode of the Pull List Examiner. This is my weekly video where I take a look at the top 3 comics I'm looking forward to reading when it comes to New Comic Book Day, and New Comic Book Day this week is going to be July 19th, 2023. Like I said on my video last week, I am not picking up the Night Terror series from DC, so a lot of those are off the list for this week. I do have a couple DC books, I think. I haven't been super impressed with this last round of the Batman books that are coming from the White Knight series. I think we're on like issue 3 this week, and the first couple were okay. But other than that, let's look at the top 3 that I'm looking forward to reading for the week right now. Starting off this week at number 3, we've got Moon Knight, City of the Dead, issue number 1. This book does have a little bit of spec, I think, going on with it, so heads up on that. If it's something you want, you may need to snag a copy right away if you don't have it on your pull list. This comic is going to introduce, I think, a new Moon Knight, and it seems to tie back, at least loosely, to the TV series that just came out. So it kind of sounds like this series might be building on or riding on the coattails of the Moon Knight series, and I really enjoyed the series that was on Disney Plus. Hopefully we do get a season 2. It sounds like we will, but anyways, with this comic book series, we do see the introduction of, I think it's the Scarlet Scarab, I think is the character that's getting introduced. So whenever there's those first appearances or new persona coming out in the comics, people tend to buy those up. There are a handful of variant covers. I'm probably just going to pick up the main cover, even though I saw there was an Alex Maleev cover. And to be honest, I am looking forward to reading this one because it is written by David Pepose, and I've read some of his other stories. He's a good writer when it comes to comics, and if you are a Moon Knight fan, I would say check this title out. At number 2 this week, we've got Void Rivals. If you haven't read that first issue yet, there is a big spoiler at the end that was revealed. I was one of the unfortunate ones that walked into my LCS and they were sold out of Void Rivals number 1. Luckily, I was able to snag one over at another comic shop in the area who had over-ordered, which is interesting because there apparently was a secret going on that Robert Kirkman, who is famous for Walking Dead and other series, is now the owner of the rights to G.I. Joe and Transformers. So he is going to be releasing these series that are tied into his own creations over at Image Comics there, and I am really interested in the Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers that will be coming out soon. I think it's scheduled in a month or 2. Huge Daniel Warren Johnson fan if you've seen previous episodes, and to be honest, some of the preview art that I've seen looks awesome, so looking forward to that. But this Void Rival story was right up my alley. The issue number 1 was basically a sci-fi space story about 2 rival factions that were fighting and end up crash landing on a planet together, and then deciding to come together and go against their differences to try and get themselves off the planet. And if you've seen other sci-fi that has a similar story, I swear I know there's other like episodes of Star Trek and Stargate that have similar plots, but with that said, I am interested in seeing what this story is going to turn into, and it seems like there's going to be some good chance for character development if it's done well. So issue 2 for Void Rivals is on my list. At number 1 this week, we have Mark Millar's Big Game, issue number 1. What do you do if you are a comic creator that has building a world for years? Well, first, apparently you sell it to Netflix. Second, you create a huge crossover series, and that's what we get this week. The Big Game title is actually a crossover of a bunch of different characters from Mark Millar, and if you read Nemesis from a few months ago, that was apparently a direct lead-in into this big game. If you read Ambassadors, that appears to be tying in. I have a feeling Jupiter's Legacy will be tying in, so I am excited to see, since I am a Mark Millar fan and I've read a handful of his other titles. I definitely have not read them all, but I've read a handful of them. They always seem to be fun reads, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we get with this huge crossover event that's called Big Game. Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Pull List Examiner. You can always find all of the comics that I'm planning on picking up on New Comic Book Day in the description of the video below. Feel free to drop a comment anytime and recommend something that you're reading. Maybe there's a title I haven't heard of yet. I totally missed last week that there was a Stranger Things Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover series, and because I have all Stranger Things titles listed on my pull list, it actually showed up in my box and I picked that up. So you never know what is out there. Sometimes I miss things that are on these lists that get published, kind of giving you the preview. I also don't always pay attention to the FOC purchases that are ahead of time. So hey, if there are things that you are reading and you like it, pass that information on in the comments below. And remember to read them, bag them, and board them, and we'll see you next time on the Pull List Examiner. Thanks.